Right now, in the waters off Iran's coast, 20 American warships are forming the largest naval blockade the world has seen in decades. 2 aircraft carriers, a dozen destroyers bristling with missiles, submarines lurking beneath the surface, and at the center of it all, the Strait of Hormuz, the 21-mile-wide choke point that carries 1/5 of the world's oil. This isn't a drill. This isn't a show of force. This is Operation Epic Fury, and the U.S. Navy just turned the Persian Gulf into a fortress Iran cannot escape. The deployment began in late April, when the USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group circumnavigated Africa and arrived in the Arabian Sea on April 23rd. Days later, the USS Abraham Lincoln joined from the opposite direction, steaming through the Indian Ocean with an air wing that includes F-35C stealth fighters. By early May, both carrier groups had taken position, one in the Arabian Sea, one in the Gulf of Oman, creating overlapping zones of control that leave Iran with nowhere to hide. But carriers don't travel alone. Accompanying these floating air bases are Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the backbone of American naval power. The USS John Finn, USS Milius, USS Truxtun, and USS Mason form the outer defensive ring, their Aegis combat systems scanning the skies for threats. Each destroyer carries up to 90 vertical launch cells loaded with Tomahawk cruise missiles, SM-2 and SM-6 air defense missiles, and anti-submarine torpedoes. Behind them, the USNS Carl Brashear, a fast combat support ship, ensures the fleet never runs out of fuel, food, or ammunition. The Navy positioned Independence-class littoral combat ships in the shallow waters closest to Iran's coast. These vessels are specifically designed for the kinds of threats Iran loves to deploy: fast attack boats, mines, and shore-based anti-ship missiles. They're the first line of defense, the tripwire that absorbs the initial blow while the destroyers and carriers prepare to strike back. And if Iran tries to swarm them with small boats like they did on May 7th, when they attacked 3 U.S. destroyers with missiles and drones, those littoral combat ships are ready to shred anything that gets close. Beneath the surface, Virginia-class nuclear attack submarines are prowling the depths. The Navy won't say how many, but intelligence estimates suggest at least 2 are operating in the area. These submarines are hunting Iran's Ghadir-class mini-subs, the stealth vessels Tehran has been positioning at the bottom of the strait, waiting to ambush commercial ships or launch surprise torpedo attacks. The Virginia-class subs are dropping sonobuoys, listening for the faintest mechanical noise, mapping every inch of the seabed. When they find an Iranian sub, a Mark 48 heavyweight torpedo ends the conversation. Above the water, the air war is already underway. FA-18 Super Hornets from the USS George H.W. Bush have been conducting round-the-clock patrols, enforcing the blockade with precision strikes. On May 7th, Super Hornets fired on the Iranian oil tanker MTC Star 3, hitting its smokestack with a guided munition that instantly paralyzed the ship's engines. Days later, they disabled the MT Sevda and the MT Hosna, leaving all 3 tankers dead in the water, unable to reach Iranian ports. The U.S. isn't sinking these ships, it's crippling them, turning Iran's oil export fleet into floating scrap metal. The blockade line itself stretches from Ras Al Had in Oman to Chabahar on Iran's eastern border, a steel net that nothing passes without permission. U.S. Central Command reported that by May 10th, American forces had redirected 61 commercial vessels attempting to enter Iranian waters. 4 ships that refused to comply were disabled. The message is clear. If you're carrying cargo to Iran, you turn around or your ship becomes a target. But this operation isn't just about stopping ships. The real objective is economic strangulation. Iran's economy depends on oil exports, and before the blockade, Tehran was moving approximately 2 million barrels per day, mostly to China. Now, that flow has been cut to nearly zero. Every day the blockade holds, Iran loses an estimated $500 million in revenue. The regime can't pay its military, can't import food, can't keep the lights on in Tehran. The Pentagon's strategy is simple. Make the cost of resistance so unbearable that Iran has no choice but to negotiate. And Iran knows it's losing. On May 4th, the Iranian military warned the U.S. to stay out of Hormuz. Hours later, Iranian forces fired missiles at what they claimed was a U.S. frigate. Central Command denied any ship was hit. When Iranian fast boats tried to swarm U.S. destroyers on May 7th, they were obliterated before they got within 5 miles. 6 or 7 boats destroyed in minutes. The survivors never made it home. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the Navy's newest carrier, just finished a deployment in the region and transited through the Strait of Gibraltar on May 6th, heading home after 315 days at sea. Ford's departure leaves 2 carriers in theater, but that's intentional. The Navy is rotating forces, ensuring fresh crews and fully stocked magazines stay on station indefinitely. This blockade isn't ending in weeks. It's designed to last months, until Iran either capitulates or collapses. Amphibious assault ships like the USS San Antonio-class New Orleans are patrolling the edges, carrying F-35B stealth fighters and Marine expeditionary units ready to launch special operations at a moment's notice. If Iran tries to mine the Strait, if they attempt to sabotage undersea cables or pipelines, these Marines go in, neutralize the threat, and disappear before Tehran even knows they were there. But there's a darker layer to this. Iran still controls one card: closure. Right now, the Strait remains technically open for neutral shipping, but Iran has threatened to shut it down entirely, either with mines or by sinking a massive tanker in the narrowest channel. If that happens, oil prices spike globally, and every economy on Earth feels the shock. The US is betting Iran won't take that step because it would turn every nation against them. But if Tehran decides it has nothing left to lose, they could pull that trigger. P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft circling above are already hunting for signs of mine-laying activity. These aircraft drop sonobuoys into the water, creating an invisible electronic net that detects anything unusual on the seabed. MH-60 Seahawk helicopters use dipping sonars to X-ray the Strait's depths. Unmanned surface vessels patrol continuously, their AI systems analyzing acoustic data in real time. The US is building a digital map so detailed that if Iran tries to plant a single mine, the Navy will know within minutes. What happens if Iran strikes back hard? What if they launch anti-ship ballistic missiles designed to sink carriers? The Pentagon has wargamed this. Iran's most dangerous weapons are the Shahab-3 and Sejil missiles. But hitting a moving carrier is nearly impossible. American destroyers would intercept most missiles mid-flight with SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. Electronic warfare would confuse the guidance systems of any that got through. Iran would need multiple direct hits to mission kill a carrier, and the US Navy isn't giving them that chance. So what's the end game? The blockade continues until one of 3 things happens. First, Iran agrees to reopen the Strait, ends its nuclear program, and accepts inspections. Second, the Iranian economy collapses so completely that the regime falls from within. Or third, Iran escalates to full-scale war, at which point the US shifts from blockade to invasion, using those 20 warships as the tip of a spear that dismantles Iran's military in days. Right now, we're in a holding pattern. The blockade is working. Iran is hemorrhaging money. But Tehran is also preparing something. Intelligence reports suggest Iran is repositioning missile batteries closer to the coast, preparing for a massive, coordinated strike. If that attack comes, the US response will be overwhelming. Not proportional retaliation, total destruction of Iran's offensive capabilities. Ports, air bases, missile sites, command centers, everything that allows Iran to project power will be wiped off the map in 72 hours. This is the largest concentration of American naval power in a single theater since the Iraq War, and all of it pointed at one objective: forcing Iran to back down without firing the shot that starts a regional war. But every day the blockade holds, the pressure builds, and pressure eventually finds a way to explode. So what do you think? Can the US Navy maintain this blockade indefinitely, or is Iran preparing a counterstrike that changes everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.